My in-laws, heartlessly destroyed. My irreplaceable childhood memories. And they never apologize. And what I found proved they did it. On purpose. My partner and I, in a 4-year relationship, are both in our 20s, live in a very small apartment, and storage space isn't a luxury we have or can afford. My in-laws very graciously offered for us to store our belongings that we weren't using for the time being in their home. So, I labeled everything into totes and left it in their care. This stuff was mostly sentimental and Christmas items, many of them from my childhood, and reminders of when my parents were still together and my grandfather was still alive. Most of it was passed down to me, and I treasured those items so dearly because Christmas is my favorite time of year, and many of the items I owned came from family that isn't around anymore. My mom let us know recently that she had plenty of room in her storage for anything we wanted to save, so we decided to take my Christmas stuff and my partner's items from my partner's family, use it to decorate for the holidays, and then permanently relocate it to my mom's storage unit. However, when we went to visit my in-laws to collect our items, they were nowhere to be found. I was immediately feeling very suspicious and uncomfortable because they seemed unfazed by my stuff being missing. As I said before, everything was labeled, but the only items that remained belonged to my partner. Everything of mine was gone. My partner immediately said something to them about how important those items were to me, and they shrugged it off. They ultimately made a comment that we would come back, and they would help us look for it. The following weekend arrives, and we show up, and no one is home, despite their knowing we were coming to look for my belongings. They went out shopping instead. My partner and I rifled through everything, only to confirm my fears. Everything was gone. I've been devastated ever since. We don't have the funds or means to replace anything. In addition, it was irreplaceable. The sentimental value of that stuff cannot be replaced. Ever. It completely broke my heart, and I knew it was going to put a damper on my holiday season. I love to decorate for the holidays, and knowing all the memories of my childhood were just given away was infuriating. I have had suspicions throughout our entire 4-year relationship that her family does not like me. My partner, however, has disagreed vehemently, so I've given them the benefit of the doubt. However, they make a lot of derogatory statements about my ethnic background, call my dogs ugly little rats, etc. I have no reason to believe they truly care about me in the slightest, and this circumstance confirmed my fears. My partner, being the saint she is, confronted them about my belongings. Their response was to essentially blame us for leaving our stuff with them. They also attempted to lie and say that we were told many times to get our stuff, which is simply not true. We would have immediately driven to get that stuff had they made a comment like that, because that's how important it was to me. They also refused to apologize to me and told my partner they would not even offer to replace anything, confirming that this is personal. I truly don't know how to feel, and my partner and I are shocked and saddened. I have had an incredibly hard year between my mental health, finances, and overall well-being. I've only recently gotten to the point where I feel a semblance of normalcy, and I was just excited to immerse ourselves into the holiday season and end the year on a high note. That has been taken away from us, and with no remorse. I truly need advice on what to do in this scenario. Some people believe they dislike me. Others believe this has something to do with my partner and I both being women. Either way, this is a difficult situation for my partner and I. I have no skills as far as setting boundaries, and I don't want this to be forgotten and swept under the rug. Another aspect of the issue is that not only was my partner's stuff still there, but little items from the totes I had were in her family's totes, so someone did go through the stuff and keep what they wanted. Damn, you gotta have something really against someone to go that far, to throw away something so important from their childhood, from relatives that have passed away. And I do wonder what in-laws do have against OP, and I wonder if we're going to find that out in the update. OP already has their suspicions, that they could either dislike them, or it may be something to do with, both of them being women. And I would love to know a bit more about how OP's partner was feeling when all this happened. What are her thoughts on what's going on here? But, as always, we're going to cover a couple of the comments, hopefully with some replies as well, before we move on to that update. So, we're starting from Escape, who says, "You have to be really sick to throw away stuff from someone's childhood and from dead relatives." Booby888 says, "I mean, if my parents did that to my wife, I'd lose my absolute mind on them and go no contact, especially if they'd been saying and doing stuff like that for 4 years. Why does your partner still want a relationship with people who are trying to sabotage your relationship and hurt you like that? My advice is to steer clear of them and cut them out of your lives, ideally with your partner's agreement and support. It seems like they've made it definitely clear that you have a target on your back in their eyes and will keep pushing until they get what they want, to end your relationship. I don't really see any scenario where this relationship works out for you two, with them in the picture. If they got away with this without repercussions, then they escalate it until they either achieve their goal of removing you or have consequences, being cut out of your lives. They're lying and manipulative or even psychotic. These behaviors send a pretty straightforward message that they aren't interested in changing their ways, so your best shot is no contact." To which OP replied, saying, "My partner and I read this comment together, and it really resonated with both of us. Thank you for being so insightful. She grew up with a family who heavily pushed the family as everything mantra, and I'm very proud of her for breaking out of that mentality. It's not always true, and we both know that family is who we choose to keep in our circle." No Hand Banana. No says, "This is horrifying. In terms of your important things, I wonder if they donated them somewhere and you could recover some of it. I think you need to file a complaint for theft and also sue them in a civil court, as the threat of legal consequences is probably the best bet for having anything magically reappear. Those were your belongings. They have no rights to do this. In terms of your relationship with these people going forward, I don't see how it could be sustainable. I would go no contact, and your partner might well want to go low contact or no contact as well. You are her life partner, and her family chose to be deliberately cruel to the woman she loves." OP replied, saying, "Thank you for the advice. I agree 100% that this relationship is no longer sustainable. I truly don't know how to even face them comfortably after what they've done. It's just a sad season of our lives." Escape says again, saying, "That is some real psycho stuff. I don't know how you could get over it, honestly. Part of me would wait years to destroy something sentimental of theirs. Is it both parents or just one?" OP replies, saying, "As far as my partner is concerned, it was both her father and stepmother who got rid of my belongings. The items themselves were from when my parents were still together, along with stuff passed down from my deceased grandfather and Christmas villagers from my deceased aunt. Some of the stuff my mum wanted back when she gets her own house. She's helping my grandmother right now, who is ill, so I had to make a really hard phone call, letting her know that it was all gone." And one more from young Coasty, who says, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. Something similar happened to me with my family after my grandmother died. Her children threw out the things of mine that were irreplaceable. I ended up cutting myself off from the family entirely. It's not always easy, and I miss a lot of events that people I love go to. But those people showed me how little I mattered, and I could no longer associate with any of them after that point. I feel personally that this kind of action is not forgivable, both due to the scope of the damage as well as the clear, cruel intent. It looks like your partner is reading these comments with you. I do hope she is united with you on this, and I hope she decides not to see them at all this holiday season. That seems like a fitting consequence to their destruction of your memories and mementos." Maybe some new traditions in decor are in order now. Decor you pick together, and traditions you build without these toxic folks around to purposely deflate you. And one more reply from Opie, who says, "Thankfully, she's very much on the same page as me. There have been times we've been at odds about whether they like me or not, but this circumstance has confirmed to both of us that they have a problem with me. She does not want to see them for the holidays. It's obviously her choice, but I feel that if she did choose to go, it will send a message that this situation is okay when it's obviously not." Wow. And it was really sad finding out that Mum had stuff stored there as well, sentimental things that were stored there as well. And imagine that phone call that Opie would have had to make. How heartbreaking is that? But now, we're going to move on to that update to see what happens next. It's been about a month, and while it's possible many won't remember or care, I thought I would give an update. I wish I was able to come into this update with good news, but I unfortunately don't have that. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who reached out, who offered words of encouragement, and who validated my very complex and complicated feelings. This is certainly a difficult and new territory for me, and I'm navigating it as best as I can. Unfortunately, to disappoint some posters who encouraged this, I did not steal any of their stuff or burn their home down as retribution. Ultimately, my partner made the decision to have it out with them, and she and I compiled a list of her talking points to keep her on track. They were immediately defensive and angry. She was told that I am acting crazy over material possessions, and ultimately told my partner they would never apologize to me because they have no reason to. They also claim that they told me to come get my stuff many times, which we both know is a blatant lie. I would have gotten my belongings immediately had I thought they would be discarded. My partner let them know that we would not be seeing them for the holidays or in general, and they said, "Okay." It's, unfortunately, a situation where everyone loses. My partner now feels that everything she's ever believed about her family is a ruse. I'm dealing with the aftermath of everything and accepting my sentimental items are gone. My parents are fairly sad at the loss of our memories, and my partner's parents are outright ignoring their own daughter. We thought we could at least salvage a little Christmas cheer because the only thing we recovered from them was our Christmas tree. However, the legs to our tree were completely gone, and the lights were damaged. We have had that Christmas tree the entire duration of our relationship, and I was infuriated to find out they ruined that too. They did not wish my partner a Merry Christmas, nor have they attempted to reach out at all. I gave her an immense amount of props as she stuck to her guns, despite her family constantly preaching, "Family is everything," her entire life. She has been communicative and open with the hurt and betrayal she feels from her family. I sometimes blame myself, but know that this was a consequence of their actions, not my reaction. We've been told that they announced to everyone in the family that we would no longer be coming around by our own choice. As ridiculous as it is, that's the narrative they've chosen, and while I don't respect it, I have no desire to reach out or to try to settle the score. So, that's my update. They've continued on with their lives as if we don't exist, and we have continued to strengthen our relationship in the process. I'm very proud of both of us for maintaining honesty and communication. While there were certainly bumps in the road, we've come out of the sad scenario a whole lot stronger. Thanks again to everyone who reached out and offered advice. This internet stranger is incredibly grateful. And there was one comment on here which someone put, and we got some relevant information from OP afterwards. XLPager03 asked, "To be honest, I'm surprised you're not even a little angry at your partner. You told her her family hated you, and it took something like this happening for her to even hear you out. I'm so sorry about this stuff. Can you press charges against them? You never know. They might magically suddenly remember where they might be able to retrieve at least some of the items." And OPI replied, saying, "We have definitely had some difficult conversations about that. Another thing I forgot to mention in the update is that a family member admitted to us that her parents don't like me, partially because I went through a really severe depressive episode, and they didn't think my partner should have to deal with that. It solidified my previous belief that they didn't like me, and I did let her know that I was hurt by how unreasonable she made me feel for thinking that it was true. I did feel some anger from that, but it was quickly diminished by how sad I feel for my partner and how easily her parents cut ties. You know, and we've seen that quite frequently on this subreddit and many other subreddits actually. The people that a fair amount of people that preach, you know, family and family is everything, and all this kind of thing, are always the ones you usually find it's very, very one-sided, and you know, if it's not benefiting them, then, you know, family, basically. And when I was growing up in the area that I lived in, there was one of these families that was always preaching, you know, family is everything. Yet they would all turn on each other themselves like hyenas. Not sure if that's a great analogy. The hyenas turn on each other. And I look back on that family now, and their family? Well, they're not a family anymore. They're all over the place. They all hate each other, pretty much. But yeah, I've totally gone off on one now. But what do you guys make of this story? What do you think the true reason is why the in-laws dislike OP so much? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we move on to another story. And our next story does come with an update as well. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter she can't use her college money on her boyfriend? I know that the title paints me as the total jerk, but please hear me out. My 47-year-old female daughter, Sarah, 18 years old, is a very smart girl. She has a 4.0 GPA. She's valedictorian of her class, and she's just got word from her dream college that she has received a full-ride scholarship. We have a college fund for her of about $250,000. When we found out about the scholarship, we agreed that we would still give her the money to pay for other things that she would need in college, such as housing, food, etc. Well, she came home yesterday, kind of sad. I asked her what was the matter. She said she was not going to college anymore. Apparently, her boyfriend, Brian, 19 years old, told her not to go anymore. Some background on Brian. His family is very well off, and his parents have never issued discipline on this child. I mean, he is very rude and disrespectful, and although he seems sweet to my daughter when they are alone, she complained that whenever they're out with friends, Brian is constantly putting her down and comparing her to Instagram models. Brian is currently enrolled in college, but he has no set course for his future. He's just rolling with the cards, as Sarah says. Some other background info is that my daughter is going to school for marine biology. Well, with what my daughter told me about that conversation, she was telling Brian about her full-ride scholarship and how excited she was to finally go to school for marine biology. He's never supported her dream of being a marine biologist and has always told her to go to college for a real job. When he sat her down and told her to not go to college at all, he told her to wait for him here in our town and not worry about getting a job, even, because his parents will support her, and that he didn't feel comfortable with her going to college out of state and so far away. He also said that it made him feel unmanly when she has a set course for her future, which will give her a good life, while he has none. After she told me what was going on, I didn't make a decision right away, but I knew that I wasn't going to just let my daughter throw away a future like this. She then asked me for the college fund so she could help support Brian's dreams. So, I took time to think, and I sat her down today. I told her that she cannot have her college fund to spend on Brian. She started freaking out, asking why, and that it was her money. I asked her to listen. I asked her if she actually could see a serious future with Brian in it. She said nothing the first time, and then started crying. I asked her again, more gently this time, and she admitted no, while still crying. I pleaded with her to please not throw away her future for someone who she can't see herself having a life with. She then nodded and went up to her room for some time to think. From what I've learned, she broke it off with Brian, and he has been calling non-stop, crying and begging to speak to her. I feel very guilty and sort of like an a-hole. Hell no, not the bloody hell. Brian, what are you playing at? He was never going to be right for her. The fact that he doesn't support her dream of being a marine biologist when she's doing so well in school and all this kind of thing. And he sat down and told her not to go to college at all because his parents will support her, and he didn't feel comfortable with her going to college out of state, so far away, with the cherry on the cake being. He also said it made him feel unmanly when she has set a course for her future, which will give her a good life, while he has none. Holy, absolutely, you're not going to be the a-hole in this. And it sounded like, in the end, when you spoke to her, that you just gave her a reality check. She couldn't see herself having a future with him, anyway, so she did need this reality check, to me. But Spooky Armadillo says, and quotes, "I know the title paints me as the total jerk, but please hear me out," and then says, No, it does not. It paints you as a responsible parent." And the first thing I thought was, absolutely not. But then I read about halfway into your post and realized that I was right. You're absolutely not the jerk. The truth of the matter is that Brian is toxic and abusive. She absolutely loves him, but he clearly doesn't love her because he's willing to wreck her future in order to feel in control. You did the right thing. You're a wonderful parent, and at the end of the day, most men will come and go in her life, but you'll always be there. Miss Teacher 2 says, "Not the jerk. She shouldn't throw away her dreams and future for a guy who is so demeaning towards her and won't support her. Who says he would even come back to her even if she waits around for him? She's dodged a bullet." And one more from the Ruler T, who says, "I'll go even further and say that it was terrifying OP even had to step in, and their daughter is still at risk of this. OP, I'd really suggest sending your daughter to therapy of some kind. It's quite possible this guy has been emotionally abusing her for a while, and this isn't something you easily get over. You don't go from throwing away my future dream job and money for a guy to healthy independence in one intervention. This time, Opie could intervene. She's 18 and doesn't have access to all her money yet, but eventually, she'll be able to fork over $250,000 if a guy asks her. And don't count on this guy either. If he's got his tentacles in far enough that she'd give him $250,000 lightly, she'll still go back to him. Don't let him pour abuse over her for hours on the phone either. You can't imagine the things someone like that will say to have her take him back. So, now we're going to go on to that update to see what that says. I know this has blown up a lot, so I'm going to post an update in the comments since I can't make a post about it. My daughter came to eat breakfast with us this morning before going to school, and her father and I had a talk with her. We told her that we loved her and that we were here for her. She said thank you, and that meant a lot to her, for her to have our support. Of course, she does, because we will always love her and support her. We made sure to tell her that, but I told her that I did not want to ever see Brian again, and she said the feeling was mutual. I told her all of the wonderful messages and comments you guys were sending her and some of the advice you gave, and she is very grateful. We made sure to tell her that we know it's going to be hard, but to not give in to Brian's pressuring and to block him on everything. She said that she had already done so when she ended things and showed us her phone as proof, which she didn't need to do. We weren't going to force her because we trust her. She went off to school, and I called our phone provider to change our home phone number and my daughter's phone number, which I got approval for. She called me while at school lunch, crying and begging me to come pick her up. I was very confused as to why she couldn't just drive home in her car when she told me that Brian had showed up during lunch and him and some friends were blocking her from getting to her car, and she is scared. I told her I'm on my way, and before I left the house, I called the police non-emergency line and had them send officers over. Since the police station was closer to her school than our house, they got there first, and when I got there, Brian was in the back of a police cruiser. What happened was the cops pulled up, and the rest of his friends ran off, but Brian refused to leave because he believed he was doing nothing wrong. And when the cops asked him to leave the property, since he was not a student of the school, he got aggressive and attacked one of them and was going to be sent to the station. They asked me and my daughter if it's possible that we could go to the station to answer some questions, but that it was not mandatory. I told them no, and that I just want to get my daughter home since she was still a crying mess. We got home, and I sent her dad a text message about what had gone down, and he left work to head to the police station, very angry. He came home and told us he was planning on pressing charges against Brian for harassment, and that he wanted my daughter to file a restraining order. I told my husband to calm down since our daughter is going through such a hard time right now, and that when she is ready, we will discuss further details. We took our daughter to dinner to treat her, which she greatly appreciated since we only really go out to dinner on holidays or super special occasions, so this was a big treat for her. We had another dinner outing planned to celebrate her scholarship, but this was just to cheer her up, and the scholarship dinner will be held another time. We went home and watched the movie, and then I talked to my daughter about how she would feel going on a little trip to tour her college town and get away for a while, and she happily accepted. The plan is still in motion, but it's all we have for now. That's all of an update that I have right now, but if more interesting events unfold, I'll be sure to come back. Thank you all for your amazing advice, and my family greatly appreciates your support. Thank you for taking the time to help us, even though we're strangers from the internet. I hope you're all doing as well as possible. And that was the end of those updates there. And whilst I can understand, Mum saying not to escalate this any further right now, at the same time, whenever we cover these stories, it's like, always press charges. And the reason why I really feel strongly about this in this particular story is that he showed up to her school, blocked her from getting to this car, and when the police did turn up, he stood there. He stood his ground and attacked a police officer. If he's willing to go that far with a police officer, what else? And I don't mean to escalate the situation any further, but that was playing in my mind whilst reading that. Anyway, what do you guys make of this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.